Hello, hello. Happy Monday. It is a gray, rainy, put your hood up and curl up kind of day over here. So hence the zip up hoodie. I hope you are doing well. If you are in lots of rain, enjoy the rain. If you are in lots of sun, enjoy the sun. Whatever is coming your way on this day that some of us have off as a holiday, recognizing Indigenous people and Christopher Columbus and whichever way it is celebrated in the spaces that you are in, but recognizing the rich history of the people that were here long before us in this country and the people who laid the foundation for us building out into the country that we are today. But it's not what I want to talk to you all about today. Oh, but happy Indigenous People Day or happy Columbus Day, whichever one you celebrate. What I do want to talk about is how do we help our kids communicate stories from data? And so specifically a couple things. One, Charter is this super cool, Charter is this super cool newsletter that a friend shared with me, and every day they send these real world data visualizations to your inbox, and it's super fun and all of the different things, and they come with a little nugget of a story. And I thought, one, I want to shout them out because it's great. It's a great reference, a resource that we can use in our classrooms, and two, it's a great demonstration of how we support stories with our data visualizations. And this one I just thought was fun. It came through today of thinking about, sort of talking about how Lay's potato chips made this big announcement last week. Evidently, I did not see this, but they made this big announcement that they are gonna rebrand their packaging, that they're using real potatoes in their potato chips. It is so many thoughts, so many opinions about the fact that this is the way this snack company, this major snack company, is going to, help their bottom line and come back and get support. We're going to tell people that we're actually using real products, real potatoes. But that is besides the point. So Lay's came out and made this announcement, and those over at Sherwood and with Charter pulled some data visualizations to think about and support this, so what's going on? And it's really interesting. So first, let me just orient you to one of these visualizations. So we've got time here along the x-axis going from the 1970s to the 2020s where we are now. And we've got 5 different colored lines going on. Just as a note, I have very strong opinions about double y-axes, and I really like line graphs that have multiple lines on them in this way. So we've got the fresh is in blue, frozen is in the dark orange, and then chips, dehydrated, and canned are all down here along the bottom. And this is US per capita availability form of potato. So our y-axis is not labeled here. It is in the subtitle, pounds per person per year across these different ways, these different forms of potatoes. Okay, so this is our data visualization that they have. And if you're trying to sort of make a claim or tell a story from these data, how would you go about identifying what's going on in this data visualization and thinking through it? And we put together an article back in last summer that we shared out, that was published out through National Science Teaching Association's Science Scope on communicating with data around phenomena, where we talk through a variety of different reasons as to one, why data can be so helpful when we are exploring our phenomena in our science classrooms, but this is also relevant to our social studies classrooms as well, why we can anchor our math learning in phenomena to make it more real world relevant for our students. But we also identify 2 strategies that we can use when helping students identify stories or communicate with and around data as they are working with the data visualizations. And one is the question formulation technique, which I just absolutely hands-on down love on how we can empower students to ask questions and really engage with our content in our data visualization. So I just want to give that call out of like, when we're back here and we're thinking about, oh my goodness, forms of potatoes and forms of potatoes over time that Americans have been accessing and different pieces like that, sometimes it can be hard to see like, how do we engage our students? How do we invite our students in to a data visualization like this? Well, we can use the question formulation technique where they are identifying questions based on the visual. So based on just giving them this visual that has the subtitle so that they can know what's going on the y-axis. They know the time bounds on our x-axis. They know the source is from the USDA. That source is so, so, so important that we help our students always look for the source of the data. Super important for critical data literacy, critical thinking, critical media literacy, all of the pieces right now. And so we could give them this and we could engage them in the question formulation technique where they are generating questions and not just what questions do you have, but really targeted. They are doing this massive brain dump of how many questions can we ask at one time and then prioritizing those questions and moving forward from there as a way to engage in with the data visualization. That's different than if we give them the whole visualization where the title is here, the title being America's appetite for potatoes has shifted from fresh to processed. So that's different. If we're giving students a visualization, a data visualization, and the title is there that the data visualizer or the storyteller has already identified the story they want to tell. What is the claim? What's the story? What's the argument they're making from the evidence in the data visualization? That should be way up top as the title in the data visualization, as it often is with real world data visualizations. So if we're doing this, if we're giving them the whole visualization with that title, someone's already looked at the data, they've identified the story they want to tell through these data, which here is that America's appetite for potatoes has shifted from more fresh in the 1970s, then frozen, to here in the 2020s, it has shifted. It's now the inverse, where there's more for frozen than there is for fresh. That story is already there. And then we're shifting it not to what question do we have, what story do we want to pursue, what story do we want to tell, but then we're shifting into the space of, oh, what evidence do we see in this visualization that supports or refutes that story that is being put forward from the visualization. And so thinking about how we're having students communicate with one another, communicate about stories from the data, right? As I always say, data doesn't do the storytelling. We, as the humans, do the storytelling with the data that we are using. Is it an initial, we're going to tell the story? Is it we're going to look at somebody else's story and think about how that lines up or doesn't line up with the evidence in the data? All these different ways that we can get kids communicating with one another, actively talking, sharing out, telling stories, identifying questions, engaging with the data. But it depends on what we're showing them and how we want to go forward with that. And just because I think this is like so super interesting, they have another visualization. I'll put the link to this down below. They have another visualization about vegetables and sort of in consumption of vegetables overall in the US per capita. So again, pounds per person over time. This is from the 1980s to the 2020s. And the amount of fresh vegetables has gone up, whereas the amount of processed vegetables has stayed about the same. So, right, this amount of processed has stayed about the same. It looks like it's increasing, but that's because the amount of fresh, the pounds of fresh vegetables per person has increased. This is a great demonstration of our stacked area charts. Whereas with potatoes, the amount of processed is actually increasing over time, and the amount of fresh has decreased over time. Just some like all around interesting things that we can share about potatoes, which I had never thought about. But all to say, a couple great resources and strategies to think about how we can get kids communicating with, talking out loud, talking through their sense making from a variety of different angles as it relates to phenomena in our science class, as it relates to topics that we're talking about in our social studies class, as it relates to real world relevance in our math classrooms, all the different spaces that we touch point with real world data and data skills in our K-12 curriculum. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and see you around. Bye.